people wouldn't do the rational things because it wasn't what their elephant wanted. End of the day, that's what was happening. Hi, Meg.
Good afternoon, Scott.
Lovely to see you, and excited for today because I was just at a conference teaching advisors how to listen.
Yeah, I like that way of characterizing it because I know exactly what you were teaching, and if you had to summarize it for a lay audience, that is a fantastic way to summarize it.
Yeah, so we do at our firm, at both of our firms, we both do what's called financial life planning, which is really focusing more on helping clients envision a life for themselves that they really want to be living, more so than just like what age do you want to retire on a, some check-in form, but really taking the time to look at what matters most to you. And with couples, we treat you each as individuals, as you should be, because you're individuals choosing to walk through life as a couple, to figure out what matters most to you both and take it from there. And, we've been chatting for a few episodes now on a lot of tactical and strategic things that we can do to help people in their lives. And those are lovely things to know and very important to know. But they aren't always well served if you don't have a good understanding of what your vision for life is. So I thought it'd be a great time to chat about that with you today, Meg.
Yeah. You might say that all this technical, tactical stuff is necessary, but not sufficient to a really good, true, real financial planning experience.
Yeah. It's like an old Stephen Covey quote that I always remember. That's, that you don't want to put the ladder against the wrong wall and start climbing.
Yeah.
And it's so normal for people to come into our offices, or even when you're doing it at home and you're trying to figure out, what do I do next? You start thinking about like, what's the tactic? What's the strategy that's going to get me there faster? And I think it's really important to step back and go like, well, where am I actually going? Like, because that's going to help us understand how you should plan.
Yeah. And that's one visual of, right. If you know the destination you're headed towards, then how to get there becomes a whole lot more obvious. Yep. And another visual I have, which I think overlaps with what you've told me about how you sort of visually describe financial planning to people, is this idea of, you've got this constellation of financial topics and tasks and tactics and strategies. And then at the center, what is at the center of all of those things? What's sort of the source of gravitational pull? And that is the person, the human, the life. And everything is organized around that, as opposed to having a giant dollar sign that everything is organized around.
Yes, totally. And we're not going to spend too much time talking about our firms and what we do. But the thing that I constantly hear back from people once they've worked with us for a while is they're like, you guys really focus a lot on us and not nearly as much on my money as I thought you were going to. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, man, because like the short answer is yes, we still focus on their money all the time, but not with them. With them, we're focusing on them and the lives they want to live. And then underneath in the background, we're figuring out how do we optimize all of this money to help them get where they want to go faster.
Yeah. And one of the aspects of sort of working on personal finance through a lens of, or while centering the human and the life they want to live, is it actually makes the technical financial decisions so much easier to make.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes, what do I do with all my stock options? Or my company just went IPO. What do I do with all this company stock? In a vacuum of understanding anything about what the client actually wants out of life, it's really hard to make a decision there. You sell it all and then the stock goes up, wrong decision. You don't sell any of it, the stock goes down, wrong decision. But if you know what the client wants out of life, they're desperate to buy their first house or take a sabbatical, or they're fine. All this IPO stuff is gravy. Having that understanding, sometimes the financial decision just drops out of it really simply.
One of my favorite quotes in that way is actually from Walt Disney's brother, Roy Disney.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't know, but like Walt Disney was this amazing visionary, right? They know that.
Mm-hmm.
But he almost ran the company into the ground a couple of times. And it
Mm-hmm.
was his brother, Roy, was kind of this operations finance guy who kind of helped him with the vision that Walt had grow Disney into what it initially became. Obviously, other people have taken over since.
Mm-hmm.
But his quote that always resonated with me was, when your values are clear to you, making decisions becomes easier.
Mm.
And that really gets back to what you're saying. Like, if we know what we're really aiming for in our life and the IPO happens, or we're getting all of our RSUs coming off every quarter, it's going to be very clear where we're going to put that money and why.
Yeah.
But if we don't spend the time to look at that, we're going to, be on a Slack channel and someone's going to be talking about what they're doing with their RSU money. And you're going to be like, oh, maybe I should do that too.
Right.
Or what's everyone else doing?
Right.
Like,
or you're making the...
Like, life is the one place where you really don't want to run someone else's race. You really want to run your race because you only get to go around once.
Okay. So that's hopefully sort of, persuasive enough to convince people that this is sort of a worthwhile overall sort of approach to making financial decisions. I thought it would be helpful for people to hear how we actually help our clients figure out what it is they want out of life, get more clarity on it, so that we actually have that North Star to guide the client's financial decisions.
Absolutely. We do that through a few different conversations with clients. The first conversation is really a chance for the client to explore what matters to them. Right? It's the frame I would give. And so, like, Meg, if you're coming into the office, you're going to sit down with your husband and the two of you are going to have space to chat. And I want to give both of you equal space to chat and be heard. So I don't want one of you to come in and say like, oh, let me tell you all the things that are important to me. And then the other one goes like, yeah, that's good. Because, like, how great is life if you get to live a life that has all the elements in life that really matter to you and your husband doesn't?
Right.
How's that going to be? Pretty crappy, right?
Yeah. Certainly not good for the marriage.
Right. And the same the other way around. So, like, we really want to give that space for yourself at home. What you could do here is you could literally just think like, what are the essential elements for me to live a great life? And when people come into our office, they almost always start with financial things because they're talking to a financial advisor, and that makes sense, right? They're not going to ask us what to do about their brake pads because they're at the wrong place for that. But they're going to start with financial stuff. But what they don't realize is that, like, yeah, money's just a tool, and we're here to help you optimize your time, your money, your energy, and your talent. They're all interchangeable, right?
Yeah. And on that point, because we both work so heavily with people in the tech industry, and me in particular, I don't know about you, so many people in the Bay Area, and having lived in the Bay Area for a long time, my sense of the culture there is that money is sort of the measure of all things. It's a measure of smarts. It's a measure of success. It's a measure of value. And it's certainly a useful measure, but I think it sort of crowds out all of these other measures that people could usefully, helpfully think about, which is what you just listed: your time, your skills, your talents.
Right.
And that's one thing that I find people really like being reminded of. It's like, your life consists of more than just the dollars in the bank.
Well, it's so common, like, how, I wouldn't say so common because not everyone has this, but so it's fairly common that when you have two people working as a couple, one of them might want, if they're raising children, more time to be focusing on raising the kids while the kids are in the ages of kind of growing up, child rearing years, right? There's that stat that, like, I always forget where I saw the stat, but 60% of the time stats work every time. So it totally works. Right? But like from 0 to 14, you will spend 95% of your time with your kids.
Don't say this. This always depresses the hell out of me.
I know it depresses me too, but it also, that feeling of like unease with that is one of the main reasons why I very much so protect my time with my family right now. And because I know there's going to be a time in the future when they're not around as much. So that's just one little frame of a question, right? For like all the things that are essential for you to be living a great life. What are they? And just give yourself space to write them out. And more importantly, give yourself space to write them out. And then when you think you're done, just allow yourself to sit with it.
Yeah.
And see what else comes out. Because we see all the time that when you give people space to be fully heard, I envision it like Meg has 10 marbles in her pocket, and I'm just going to give her the space to put them out on the table. And I'm never going to ask for depth on any of them in this conversation. I just want to give her the space to put them out on the table. And she inevitably is going to bring out something that's like sewn in her pants pocket that she doesn't say to anyone. Those are like the hidden treasures in our life. Those are the things we need in our life. And give yourself the space to bring those out so you can figure out how to get them in your life.
Yeah, that is one of the things I most enjoy about this sort of initial exploration conversation that you and I have with clients. Because oftentimes, we'll ask them, what does your, most fulfilled life look like? And they've got a ready answer of, I don't know, 3 to 5 items. A lot of them are very practical.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the, especially if you're a parent or you've got a partner, there's almost always, more time with those loved ones.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe there's something about what kind of career they want. And they just sort of spew this out and they're like, great, done.
I answered your list.
Yeah. And then, you just, as you were sort of demonstrating just a few moments ago, you just say, great, we've got these now. You've got that time with your kid and your husband. You've got this fulfilling career. What else?
Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah.
Because inevitably that's where all the good stuff is. It's like, oh, yes. I want to be creative again. Not to say that the other things aren't good. Just to be clear, they are good. But it's also like, what are the other things? Like, do you want to be reading, all the like the greatest novels in the world again, and you don't have the time for it? Or, do you want to pick up the saxophone again? Or do you want to become like the best harmonica player in your zip code? Like, whatever it is, man, like it's your life. What do you want?
Yeah. And I think the takeaway really from what we're saying is this introspection takes time.
Yeah.
It takes silence
mm-hmm.
so that you're not sort of being distracted from further reflection.
Mm-hmm.
And usually it's helped by having a partner in the conversation who can help, even just by being silent with you.
Yeah.
To sort of get to the end, get to that 10th marble, as you said.
Yeah. If you have someone do it with you, you don't want them to ask questions along the way. You kind of got to lay the ground rules, right? It's like, okay, so when I say something, you nod your head and be with me, but you don't get to be like, tell me more about that. Cause that gets you in on that thing. And then you're not going to go think about the other things that matter to you.
A mile wide and inch deep for that first conversation. Yep.
The next conversation though, we kind of go a mile deep, don't we?
I think it's pretty obvious that we're going by sort of a shared playbook. So we both got training in, and now you actually perform training in what's called the Evoke method through the Kinder Life Planning Institute, which is simply a modality of many to help center the human and their lives center them at the center of all this financial work.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the second meeting, we've sort of pushed the boundaries of what could be in that.
It's like there's all these little priorities, all these little marbles out on the table.
Yeah. And through a series of 3 questions, which we'll probably get to enumerating specifically what they are, but they're questions that sort of take you from very broad, like lots of money, lots of time, and they gradually start restraining you in terms of time and in terms of your financial resources until we get down to the last question of, you have 24 hours left to live.
Yeah.
What did you not get to do? Who did you not get to be? What did the world not get to see of you? And that can be, and that's also where usually it becomes, well, maybe not usually, but oftentimes it becomes very clear what your biggest priorities are.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there can be some struggle and challenge there too, if those things that really matter to you aren't in your life yet. That's Absolutely. Yeah, I think you're framing it well. I think so. The you kind of had that, all those little marbles out on the table, and the idea of these three questions, and there's other exercises as well. But the nice thing about them is that first question, to Meg's point, it's very broad. So it's you wake up in the morning and you check your bank accounts and you have more money than you need for now and the future. So like anything you want to do in life that requires money, you got it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to go to work. You get to call in rich if you want, right? If you want to go to work, you can.
Yep.
But the question is, like, if that's really the life you get and you really feel it, how will you choose to live your life? Don't hold back. Live into your dreams. Put it all out on paper. So we give a piece of, we'll have it for the website if you guys want it, but at realpersonalfinance.co for this episode. But if you go there, you'll be able to download it and you can answer it yourself. You can write it out. You can type it out, whatever you want to do. And that's the first question. So it's kind of freeing, right? Because there's no money constraint. And then the next question, to Meg's point, is you go to your doctor, and this time they give you some hard news. They tell you you have a terminal illness, and you're never going to feel sick for the time that remains, which is good news. And the bad news is you're going to have no notice of the final day, and you get between 5 and 10 years to live. So you could be alive for 5 years or 10 years. So for me, that means I have my oldest boy is 12. My youngest boy is 6. So I might see them get to 22 and 16, or I might see them get to 11 and 17, which is super sad the moment I say that out loud. Yeah. But the question is, like, and for that one, I think you have the time, money, energy, and talent that you possess right now.
Correct. Yep.
People are technically allowed to interpret it any way they wish, but I have my interpret it that way.
Yeah, right. The only thing you're actually changing from reality is this
time constraint. And the thing is, like, if you're given this time constraint and you really sit with it and feel it, what will you do with the time you have remaining?
Yeah. Would you change anything?
How will you choose to live your life? And would you change anything? Exactly. That's it. So it really just kicks us into a little bit of gear, right? And then that final question.
Actually, before we do that, I really like that question because I'm 48. In all likelihood, I am going to live way longer than 10 years. But it is by no means guaranteed.
Yeah.
Right. True. So this is, in fact, a realistic question to ask.
We might not live past today, right? Like, legitimately, like, for so many of us, that's a sad fact that will happen, right? Accidents will happen. So many things can happen. That to me is the beauty of this whole process, is that we all live life. I say all should never be the answer. Most of us live life thinking, I have more time. Life will go on. I can do it later. And this is a wonderful moment to go, like, really? Can you? Nothing's promised here. So make something of it.
I just thought of this sort of connection to the technical side of things, which is, if you have anyone depending on you financially, a stay-at-home spouse, kids, most likely you have or know you should have life insurance, right? You don't think you're going to need it, and you certainly hope you don't. And statistically speaking, you probably won't. But you still get it. Because if you do die, it would be catastrophic if you didn't, right? Yeah. Be catastrophic for your family. And in the same way, doing this exercise or these exercises is insurance on a life well lived.
Yeah, that's the whole point to me. It's really about helping the thing we get to do, where I was joking and saying I teach advisors how to listen. Advisors are really good at being technical and telling people how to do things to optimize their finances. But if we aren't doing it through the lens, I think of it as like us understanding the lens through which the client wants to live their life, and then we do the financial stuff, that can be detrimental, to your point. But that's where the good stuff is figuring out what matters most to them and then helping them step into those things. And ultimately, though, it's not about us doing anything. It's just about the client getting the space to see what really matters to me. Who really am I? And what do I want to be doing in my life? And the biggest key is that the key to me is that you, the client or the listener, get to have your own integrity through all of this. It's really about a life well lived for you, not for me. Not for Meg. We have our own versions of a life well lived, right? We don't want to push our agenda on you. It's about you doing it for yourself. So use these questions to help yourself figure out what those things are.
Yeah, and I think one word that came up to me when you were just talking was this idea of permission.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that often clients tacitly want or ask for my permission to do big things that they really, really want to do,
Yes.
but don't know if they're quote unquote allowed to as a responsible adult.
Yes.
And what these questions hopefully start to help you realize is I am allowed to want these things, even if they're very different from what I currently have.
Yeah. Yeah. You only get one life to live, you know?
Yeah.
If you want to stop being an executive and go work at a nonprofit, or you want to, whatever your life is, like, it's your life.
Yeah.
Don't worry about what other people want. Go do it. Cause that'll lead to you having time, money, energy, and talent are all real. But if you're putting all of your talent, time, and energy into things that you don't love in life, more often than not, it's not leaving you to the best life you can have. You're probably keeping score with someone else's scorebook, if that makes sense. Scorebook's the wrong word. I can't think of the right word for it. Scorecard work.
There we go.
Thank you.
Vocabulary.
I went to a state school.
Thank God I went to one of those elite liberal arts colleges.
Yeah, well, I know you did every time I speak to you, so I'm with you. Yeah.
And I do want to sort of interject. I don't know, maybe you might think of this as being sort of unnecessarily not enthusiastic enough, but it's sometimes hard to make big changes.
Oh yeah.
Right. And so I don't want us to give the impression of like, I don't care about what anyone else thinks about what you're doing, or just like figure out what you want to do and then boom, you're doing it.
No, fully agree with that. And to be clear, like, this is the work that we get to do with clients that I honestly kind of love the most, because the finance stuff's important, but it's helping people go through these types of values style exercises to figure out who really are you, and who do you want to be, and how far apart are those things. And sometimes you find people who have kind of equanimity and
I think we got
contentment.
Yeah.
I said it properly. Basically right now. And it's like, we just need to make little changes in our lives, and we don't need a big change.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you'll run into people who are like, wow, I really want to live a totally different life.
Yeah.
And so then you get to help them figure out how would they go about doing this and find ways to do it. I mean, we did that with a client who worked in the law profession, making over $1 million a year, and they were never home with their family, and they wanted to be with their family. And so we found a way for them to make a switch that reduced their income by 75%.
Nice.
A lot of people would be like, there's no way I'm doing that. I have all this prestige and I have all these things, and how would I ever do? That's not what they cared about.
Yeah. Yeah. A couple thoughts inspired by that. One is we just talked about these three pretty big.
Well, two. We'll get to the third one eventually.
Oh, I think I'd mentioned it earlier. Okay. So whether or not we've fully explored the third question, these three pretty big questions.
Yeah.
And that's what you and I do when we sort of first start to get to know a new client.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the stuff sort of evolves over time. Life doesn't just shift on a dime. I think it's really important to check in with yourself on a regular basis. Maybe not those exact three questions again, but I always remember George Kinder, who pioneered these three questions. I remember him saying once that every quarter he asked himself the third question again. And we can go into that now. But just, one of these three questions, it's not like the whole kit and caboodle, but he wanted to make sure that he was regularly checking in. Like, am I still making decisions in my life that align with, that support the best kind of life for me?
Yeah.
Because, and this is my second point, we are subject to nonstop bombardment from the outside world, from our family, our friends, colleagues, strangers, TV, internet, of what these other people, the outside world, think of as success, as meaning, as valuable.
Yeah.
And I don't think we stand a chance against that influence unless we are regularly checking in with ourselves.
And that actually goes back to the idea of, I think it was during the Apollo missions. And if someone knows the right answer, you're welcome to correct me. But during the Apollo missions, when they were shooting to the moon, the trajectory that they were headed on was called integrity.
Ah.
And so they would want to know what the integrity of the ship was. And so to your point, like sometimes people come and they're making big shifts because they kind of feel out of integrity in their life. And then other times people come and they feel like, I'm already really good with life. We were talking about this before the show started because, you know, we're both at places in our careers where we don't have these giant changes or these giant ambitious goals that we need to make. And it's like, you kind of have to learn to be okay with that because you're used to being the person who's supposed to be going and getting and doing and running. But when you go back to your 95% of the time spent with your kids, which Meg hates, happens to 0 to 14, and I have a 12 and 6-year-old, I'm like, I'm not growing a huge business right now.
Yeah.
But to your point, that integrity thing, but that third question that's helpful for this is, you know, you go to your doctor and sadly they're just like, Meg, I'm really sorry to tell you this, but time is up. You have a terminal illness and it's to term. You're going to be here for like 24 hours. And it's not even about what do we do in the 24 hours that when we hear this, it's really about, wow, if you sit with the fact, I sit with the fact that I don't see Amanda tomorrow, my wife and my boys and all the people that matter in my life. And then I ask myself, you know, what did I miss? Who did I not get to be?
Yeah.
What did I not get to do? It really just cuts to the chase, and it gets to the things that really matter in my heart's core, that like are the things in my life that need to happen in my life. And it's going to be totally different than other people's. Some might have similar things, and that's lovely, but it really just looks at what's the untapped potential in your life.
Yeah. This is reminding me that I really need to have someone sit with me in a life planning conversation again.
Because I hire a financial planner and then you'll be good.
I'm trying, man. I'm in the process. Yeah. And I have, from a very practical sense, sort of how do we've talked about these questions we ask clients, and sort of you need to ask these same questions or similar questions. Like you've mentioned this idea of what are the 3 most essential elements in your ideal life?
Yeah.
And that can just be your check-in question on a quarterly or yearly basis. And I find in my practice with clients that what's helpful is, you know, we walk through these explicit questions, and then we sort of write down, what does that mean in terms of goals for your life?
Yeah.
We write down those goals. And then when we meet again, not only do we ask, what are the, 3 essential elements or something similar, but we go back through the goals we've talked about before.
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
Are these still relevant to you? Is this still your number 1 priority as it was last year?
Yeah.
Sometimes it isn't anymore. Great. We've shifted away from it. We don't have to worry about it. Sometimes it is. And then we get to ask the question, okay, are you actively making decisions to bring that to fruition? Sometimes clients are, and sometimes they're not. And then that's sort of the accountability moment of, okay, you've told me and you've just reaffirmed for me that this is core to you having a meaningful life. And yet I'm not seeing you doing anything to actually bring it to fruition.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We do the same thing in our practice. We do. It is a sheet. We'll add it to the show notes too. It's just a sheet that we call goals for life. And you look at the sheet and you just kind of go, okay, from 1 week to lifetime, what things need to happen in your relationship and spirituality and, work, health, finances, all these things. And you don't fill out all of them because that'd be overwhelming, but it's like, what are the 8 to 10 that are calling out to me that I want to make sure I do? And then you need to make sure that you know what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, how you're going to do it, and who's going to hold you accountable to help make sure you get those things done. And the cool thing is every year you come back and you get to help you see the progress that people have made in their lives, which is unbelievable. And to your point, we come back and go like, with this one, we haven't moved on. What's going on? What is it? Is it still something that really matters to you?
Yep.
Or, oh, it doesn't matter to me anymore. Cool. Let's just get rid of it. And what else needs to be in here for you to keep living into your life? Because we are ever evolving and changing. Like, it's not like the moment we make a plan or the moment we have a vision of what we want a great life to look like, we're not going to change that over time.
Yeah.
When I was 22, I think I wanted to live in a log cabin with a golden retriever and ski 60 days a year.
Yeah.
I really screwed that one up.
You did horribly at executing that life plan. Yeah. And I think that this whole discussion gets back to it is always evolving.
Yeah.
And you might not get it right the first time out. Like I remember when I went through this training initially and, sort of quote unquote got life planned, I had two major elements of my life plan. One of them was taking my girls to France for the first time. And the other one was having a wingback chair with an ottoman. I just really, really wanted a wingback chair with an ottoman. That one was easy to do. The trip to France took a few more years, but
you still did it though.
I did.
Yes.
Screw you, COVID. Anyways, I got the wingback chair with an ottoman. I was like, oh, I love this. And I was like, why do I love this? Oh, it's not for the chair itself. It's because it represents time to read and solitude and quiet. And sometimes you just need these experiments to see, like, how am I actually reacting now that I have the thing I said I wanted?
Yeah. You totally went next level. But, one of the things that happens to all of us, for you listeners out there, is that we attach this like tactical thing or this strategic thing. I need this in my life. And when this is in my life will feel complete. Mm-hmm. And the question to ask yourself is, if you can put yourself there. So for like Meg, the question would be, Meg, if you put yourself in the wingback chair, what is it that you're doing? How does it feel to be there? Like, and really allow yourself to bring it to life. What you want is all the emotional things underneath the feelings that are happening with the wingback chair. Yeah. The wingback chair is a representation of that in your life. And so oftentimes we'll come up with things in our life that will be like, I really want an $8 million beach house. Like that could be in my neighborhood. Well, they probably have to be a $15 million beach house in my neighborhood now. And it'd be like, well, once I have it, I'll feel okay. Well, that lines me up for a lifetime of suffering until I get that $15 million house. Yeah. When the real underlying question is like, Scott, what are you doing in that house? Because I already know what I'm doing. I'm hanging out with my friends, having barbecues, going to the beach, doing all these things with my family. And so the question ultimately is, how can you have those things in your life faster?
Yeah. There's an essence that you've attached some sort of tangible manifestation of to it.
Like for your daughters in France, obviously you had to wait to get your daughters to France, but it was like, what were the underlying things you wanted to be doing with your daughters in France? How did that feel? Is there any way you can have some of those elements in your life while COVID is telling you you're not allowed to fly?
Yeah. This particular framework that Scott and I are discussing is just one way of
one mode
looking at one modality, right? And you start looking at other modalities and you just start to recognize the similarities. They're just like different. They use different terminology, right? To say the exact same thing, because underneath it all, human behavior, human psychology, human desires, it's the same no matter what words you use. Yeah. I really like the book Switch. Subtitle.
It's on my reading list. How to change
when change is hard. Yeah, how to change when change is hard. Right. And I will give a synopsis of it, which is there are three characters in this book. There is the elephant, the rider, and the path. Yeah. And the elephant is our emotional brain. The rider is our rational brain, and the path is the direction we're supposed to be going. Yeah. And the rider knows the path we're supposed to be going. The elephant is your emotions, and that they're in charge. Rider could be on top of that elephant, like straining with all their might to try to get the elephant to change direction, not doing anything. No. And so my favorite phrase from that book is, you have to motivate the elephant. Yes. And how do you motivate the elephant? You tap into what the elephant really, really wants. Yes. And as soon as you do that, steering the elephant in a different direction, if what they want to do is go in the other direction, is simple.
That's so true. And that's exactly what we're helping advisors learn, how to give space for clients to essentially steer their elephant, right? Because the thing in our business is, most of the time, the reason I came to this stuff in the first place was I would hand people the perfect plan. And I'd be like, just go do it. This is what we have to do, and you're going to live your great life. And then execution would fall by the wayside. People wouldn't do the rational things because it wasn't what their elephant wanted. End of the day, that's what was happening.
Yep.
Yeah. Love
All
that
right.
frame. Good
So
frame.
I know you and I could talk sort of endlessly
We talk
about
about this for hours. Yeah.
about this. You demonstrably recently have talked about this
I just
for
did.
hours in the training you just led.
Like 24 hours, actually.
But if this idea intrigues people who are listening, what would you say is the one thing that they could just go away and do themselves to help get them started understanding a bit more what kind of life they're trying to build?
Set 20 minutes aside, 30 max, to answer your 3 questions. And don't overthink it. Just let it flow.
Yep.
Just sit down and read the first question, answer it completely, turn to the next one, feel that you're actually in that position as a human being, answer that question fully, and then go to the third question, answer it fully. It will be so, it amazed me the first time I answered those questions, how it cut right to the heart of the matter.
And I assume you might put these in show notes or
they'll be in the show notes.
Or you can just Google
Kinder's 3 questions.
3 questions.
Yeah, you'll find them.
They're all over the internet.
Yeah.
Yep.
We'll give them to you. Yeah. And if you guys are enjoying the content, would you please just go leave a review wherever you listen to us, please? And we would love to start answering some listener questions as well. So if you have one, please go to realpersonalfinance.co and leave us a question. We have things we want to talk about, but we'd be much more intrigued to know what you want us to talk about and would love to help you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, until next time.
All right. Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Meg.